would we be able to go through a takeoff procedure, Scramble, Typhoon? Because one thing that really interests me is unrestricted takeoff, and I'm sure a lot of people.
Yes.
So if you're allowed to,
yes,
you don't have to say what buttons do what, but you know what you'd be looking for and how you line up and what happens in that situation.
You would get the scramble, scramble, scramble message, and you would then the jet. Part of its integral design, just like the F3, is that you have not many button switches for exactly this scenario. So I would literally put the throttles forward, which would start the engines. The Typhoon is extremely clever in that a lot of it is automated, and that affords you the ability to have just one person in it. Because Typhoon's really easy to fly. But I am digressing, but I realise that I will come back. But there's a lot of information for one person to take in. And obviously there are redundant systems. There's 2 systems for everything. So there's a lot of automation to help you out, as it were. Sometimes it doesn't help you out because sometimes she thinks she knows best, but she doesn't because she's a machine. And I say she because it's a woman's voice that talks to you.
Okay.
She's very annoying.
Like Alexa.
It's very annoying. Yes. And she shouts at you for various things that sometimes you need to know and sometimes you just don't. And she just interrupts your thought process. So the throttles go to idle, and that the engines then sequence themselves to start one and then another. And you've got the guys, and I should mention that you've also got the lineys and the guys who quite often just run out in their pants because they've also been in a deep sleep, and I've been taxied off more than once with guys in their pants from QRA. So the engines are starting. At this point, you're then thinking about the weapons because you need your missiles to cool. So you're interrogating the weapons systems and you're checking that those are all online, because if, let's say, you didn't have a certain weapon working for you, you might need to tell someone that's going to be starting to make decisions, because you're not there to make decisions. You're there to report what is going on. And it's definitely up the chain, all the way up the chain to, the Prime Minister that will essentially make decisions. And I'm not going to touch too much on that because I can't. But you're checking that those are working. You're reporting any defects. You're checking with your wingman because they're also starting as well. And again, if they're having a problem, then you might need to tell the radar guys, look, by the way, Q2 is having a problem. He might be late. You're checking with the tanker because the tanker is also getting airborne because you don't know you don't know where you're going. Maybe you don't know how long you're going to be flying, so you're going to need gas. So you're talking on the radio, you're listening to the other radio as well with the situation, hopefully getting some information about where the aircraft is and what the situation is. Is it a bomb threat? Is it a hijacked squawk? Is it just someone with a problem that has lost comms? Because it could just be an airline that's lost comms and you need to just go and help them because they might need escorting into an airfield. So you're doing that, you're checking your weapons, you're firing up everything. The guys outside are doing all the panel checks, but that's it. Actually, on Typhoon, it's great. There's not much to do. Once everything's good to go, they'll unplug, they'll go out, and you just taxi off, and they take the pins out of the flares, because your flares are also something that you can use to potentially attract attention of someone in a cockpit, for instance. And then you taxi round. The hazards at Coningsby, which is one of the bases, are pretty close to the end of one of the runways. It's not a very far taxi by definition because you want the minimum time possible to get airborne. And as you're taxiing down, that's the point where you need to sort of settle down, because you're then into your normal pre-takeoff checks that you would do every single mission. So the startup checks are very specific. They're sort of quick reaction specific checks. By the time the pins come out and you are now on the dark taxiway, I always say to the guys that I'm teaching quick reaction alert to, it's like, that's the time to just take a breath, relax, put your normal hat back on and go, right, let me go slow time through my takeoff checks, because that is my last chance before I go flying to make sure that I've got everything working for me and that everything's in the right place, that I'm squawking, that, my lights are on, all the sort of mundane things that are super important that you might not have thought about when the adrenaline was pumping. So we're going down the taxiway. It might be dark, but in a way, when it goes dark, it's quite nice because it sort of calms you down a bit. You're speaking to air traffic. You still need to get takeoff clearance. And actually, they're normally pretty good. They normally give you that straight away because obviously you have priority. And certainly in 3 a.m, there's probably not many other people flying. And you get to the end of the runway And you don't have to stop. Normally we would stop, check the brakes, but for quick reaction alert, it's just go. You're checking in the mirrors to see your wingman, how they're doing. And you taxi onto the center line. And for Q, because you're heavy and because we need to get going, it's a reheat takeoff. So reheat takeoff up to essentially mid 200s and then reheat out. And then again, wheels are up. I'm squawking. I've got 10-13 set. Relax. Right now almost becomes the difficult part because you've now got civilian air traffic on the front radio. You've got the tactical military people on the back radio, and everyone is wanting to talk to you because they want to know your updates. They want to know your status. They want to know how you're doing. They want to know if you've got them on the radar yet. And they are having a bit of a battle as well because the tactical person knows exactly where you need to be to intercept the aircraft. But the civilian people are going, well, actually, hold on a minute, I've got loads of airliners up there as well. So I can't just give you freedom to maneuver at any height because I've got other people to deconflict. And what they're doing at that time is trying to get people out of the way. And so there's a real battle. And that's the difficult bit because there's so many people talking to you and you're trying to, calm down, figure everything out, speak to your wingy. And then at some point you get a handover from the civilian guys say, yeah, I've got everyone out of the way now. Tactical guys, you have now control. And then you're just speaking to them. And what normally happens is that I would speak to them and that my wingy would maybe take over speaking to the civilian guys. And then fortunately, you're back into that, training takes over. This is just going to be now a VID. We're going to go and see what happens. We're going to close up. Is there any damage? Is there any unusual activity? Are they on the flight plan? Can I literally go up to the cockpit and see the captain? Is he, signaling I've got a problem or whatever? And it's then your job to report what you can see so that those that are making the decisions can make an informed decision about what is then going to happen. So it's been pretty intense up until that point. Then you have to force yourself to calm down to get airborne in good order. And then it gets pretty intense again when you're trying to figure out everyone's talking to you and wants a bit of you. And then it calms down again because you're then into everyone goes quiet and you're into you just fly the profile that you've flown 1,000 times. I hope that answers the question.
It does. And it feels really stressful. That part where everyone's talking to you.
Yeah. And I think it's stressful, not in that there's a lot going on almost. It's the pressure of the situation that's at hand because you must not mess up because actually you have got to feed into this decision. Absolute worst case, this could be a hijacked airliner that is threatening to fly into a nuclear power station or the Houses of Parliament. I mean, you've got no idea. And obviously having gone through, I wasn't on Q during September the 11th, but a lot of people that I've worked with were, and it's a real threat, and my friend was on QRA the day that the terrorist plot was foiled, which then led to the liquids ban. So, this isn't a scenario that is hypothetical. This is a genuine, this could happen. And so whenever you sit on Q, a good day is that you do nothing and you sit down and you sit on the lazy boy and you watch Home Under the Hammer. That's a great day. A bad day is if you get called to cockpit or you scramble because is that the day that you are going to shoot down an airliner with 400 people in it? So it's really serious business. So that's why it's stressful. Actually, all that stuff sounds stressful, but actually in the back of your mind, it's that pressure of, oh my gosh, am I going to be asked to do this or told to do this? It's not, clearly it's not your decision other than you have the right to defend. But it's that pressure of, I must not mess up. I must not say something that might lead someone down a decision-making process that isn't correct. Yeah. And also, am I going to be in a situation where I have to pull the trigger? So it's that respect that's really that's stressful. Because
there is a case study for that. Like you said, with September 11th, George Bush was in Air Force One.
Yep.
Uncontactable. I can't remember. Was it because he was at the school and the vice president was the one that made a decision? Was it verbal? Was it written? Or should he made that decision about what they were going to do with the United flight that ended up in the field, unfortunately? But that whole situation surrounds the taking out of commercial airliner and who ultimately makes that decision at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So yeah, incredibly.
So I'd say that's the stressful part. And then obviously thinking about, I mean, your life will absolutely change forever after that, because, and I was always worried, certainly because, you know, we spoke about what would happen afterwards. Let's say you shot an airliner down, obviously having been told to, it's all, you know, legitimate and happened as it was supposed to. But still, you land, everything is now impounded. You go back in, you're still on queue, although probably someone would then come and take over from you. But you would obviously probably end up in a court of law. And my worry was that I was the only woman on the squadron. And even though they said, no, it's fine, you know, we won't shield, you know, we'll shield you so they can't see your face. Well, as soon as I start talking, I'm the only female Typhoon pilot. So they're going to know who I am, and your life will change, because there are, quite rightly, 400 people's families out there baying for your blood because you're the one that pulled the trigger, potentially. And again, that's also something that you think about, because that will change your life forever, I think.